The Velen Empire was old. It ruled 1,000 star systems. Its ships crossed the galaxy like shadows moving through the night. Its people lived for centuries. They were tall and strong. Their skin was dark like polished stone. Their eyes burned gold like small suns, and they thought very little of humans. Kang Do-yoon knew this well. He had worked in the Imperial Palace for 3 years. He cleaned the floors. He carried heavy things. He served food and drink to nobles who never looked at his face. To them, he was not a person. He was a tool, a thing that moved and worked and stayed quiet. Humans had come to the stars 50 years ago. They found that the galaxy was full of life, full of empires and kingdoms and powers beyond their imagination. The Velen were the greatest of these powers. They welcomed humans the way a king might welcome a stray dog, with amusement, with mild interest, with no respect at all. Earth joined the Velen Empire as a minor world. Humans could travel. They could work. They could live among the stars. But they would never be equals. They were too weak, too small. They lived only 80 years, while the Velen lived for 800. What could such short-lived creatures ever achieve? Do-hyun accepted this. Or at least, he pretended to accept it. He kept his head down. He never met a Velen's eyes. He spoke only when spoken to. He made himself invisible. It was the only way to survive. The Imperial Palace was vast. It floated above the capital world like a second moon. Its halls were made of crystal and metal that sang when the light touched them. Its gardens held plants from 100 different worlds. Its throne room could hold 10,000 people and still feel empty. Do-hyun worked in the Western Wing. This was where the royal family lived. The Emperor, the Empress, their children, and their youngest daughter, Princess Yuna. She was different from the others. The first time she spoke to him, Do-hyun almost dropped the tray he was carrying. He had been walking through the Hall of Ancestors, a long corridor filled with statues of dead emperors. She was standing by a window, looking at the stars. "What is your name?" she asked. Do-hyun stopped. He bowed low. "This servant is called Do-hyun, Your Highness, Do-hyun." She said the word slowly, as if tasting it. "That is a human name. What does it mean?" "It means guidance and wisdom, Your Highness. A good name." She turned to look at him. Her golden eyes were curious, not cold. "You may rise." He stood, but kept his eyes on the floor. "You have worked here for some time," she said. "I have seen you before. You move quietly. You never make mistakes. The other servants fear the nobles, but you do not seem afraid." Do-hyun said nothing. He did not know what to say. "Why is that?" she asked. "Why are you not afraid?" It was a dangerous question. If he answered wrong, he could be punished. Killed, even. The Velen did not like humans who showed too much spirit, but something in her voice made him speak the truth. "Fear does not help me work better, Your Highness. So I put it away." Princess Yuna smiled. It was a small smile, but real. "You are an interesting human, Do-hyun. I will remember your name." She walked away. Do-hyun stood alone in the hall for a long moment. His heart was beating fast. No one had ever called him interesting before. After that night, things changed. Not in big ways. In small ways. Princess Yuna would nod to him when she passed. She would ask him small questions. How was his day? Did he sleep well? What did he think of the weather on the station? The other servants noticed. They whispered about it. Some were jealous. Some were worried. "Be careful," an old human woman told him. She had worked in the palace for 20 years. "The royals are not our friends. They might seem kind, but we are still nothing to them. Remember that." Do-hyun remembered. But he could not stop himself from looking forward to seeing the princess. She was the only person in the palace who saw him as a person. One evening, she found him in the Hall of Conquest. This was a great room filled with weapons and trophies from ancient wars. Do-hyun had been given the job of polishing the ancestral blades. They were ceremonial swords, each one older than human civilization. "You handle them with care," Princess Yuna said, watching him work. "They deserve care, Your Highness. They have history. Most humans do not care about our history. Most humans are not given the chance to learn it." She was quiet for a moment. Then she sat down on a nearby bench, her long robes spreading around her like water. "You are not afraid of us," she said. It was not a question this time. It was a statement. "Should I be, Your Highness?" She tilted her head, looking at him the way someone might look at a puzzle. "Everyone else is. Everyone else has not spoken with you," Do-hyun said. The words came out before he could stop them. He froze, expecting anger, but Princess Yuna only laughed. It was a soft sound like bells. "You are bold for a servant." "I apologize, Your Highness." "Do not apologize. It is refreshing." She stood and walked toward the door. At the threshold, she paused and looked back. "I think there is more to you than you show, Kang Do-hyun. I wonder what you are hiding." She left. Do-hyun stood alone among the ancient weapons. His hands were steady, but his mind was racing. She was right. He was hiding something. Something he had hidden for so long that sometimes he forgot it was there. But it was still there, waiting, sleeping, and one day it would wake up. The Festival of Ascension was the most important day in the Velen calendar. It celebrated the founding of the empire 10,000 years ago. Every noble house sent their representatives. Every military commander attended. The emperor himself sat upon the throne of stars and received the loyalty of his people. The grand court was filled with thousands of Velan. Their dark skin gleamed under the crystal lights. Their gold eyes shone like stars. They wore robes of silk and metal, decorated with jewels from 100 worlds. They laughed and talked and showed off their power. Among them, invisible as always, moved the servants. Do-hyun carried a tray of ceremonial wine. The glasses were made of crystal so thin he could see through them. The wine was purple and smelled like flowers. He moved through the crowd, offering drinks, keeping his head down, saying nothing. He had done this many times before. It was easy work. Boring work. Safe work. But tonight felt different. He could not explain why. There was a feeling in his chest. A tightness. Like something bad was coming. He had learned to trust this feeling. It had saved his life more than once back on Earth, before he came to the stars. Do-hyun looked around the room. Everything seemed normal. The nobles were drinking and laughing. The emperor sat on his throne, speaking with his advisors. The empress stood beside him, beautiful and cold, and Princess Yuna stood near the center of the room, surrounded by young nobles who wanted her attention. She wore a dress of deep blue, like the ocean at night. Her dark hair was decorated with small lights that looked like stars. She smiled and nodded at whatever the nobles said, but Do-hyun could see that she was bored. Their eyes met across the room. She gave him a small nod. He bowed his head in return. Then he saw it. It was just a shimmer. A tiny ripple in the air, like heat rising from hot stone. Most people would not have noticed it. Most people were not looking. But Do-hyun was always looking. The shimmer moved through the crowd. It moved toward Princess Yuna. And as it moved, Do-hyun saw the outline of something beneath the shimmer. A figure. A shape. A person wearing a cloaking field. An assassin. Time seemed to slow down. Do-hyun was 30 meters away from the princess. The assassin was 5 meters away. The assassin's hand was rising, and in that hand was an energy blade, glowing red like a dying star. No one else saw. No one else was looking. The nobles laughed and drank. The guards watched the doors. The princess smiled at some joke she did not find funny. She was going to die, unless Do-yoon did something. For 3 years, he had hidden. For 3 years, he had pretended to be weak. For 3 years, he had kept his head down and his mouth shut and his true self locked away. But now, in this moment, none of that mattered. He dropped the tray. The crystal glasses shattered on the floor. The purple wine spread like blood, and Do-hyun moved. He crossed 30 meters in less than 2 seconds. To the villain watching, he was a blur, a streak of motion that their eyes could barely follow. One moment, he was standing by the wall. The next moment, he was between the princess and death. The assassin's blade came down. Do-hyun raised the metal tray like a shield. The blade cut through it, but the angle changed. Instead of hitting Princess Yuna's hard, it hit Do-hyun's shoulder. Pain exploded through his body. Hot, sharp, like fire burning under his skin. He did not scream. His free hand shot out and grabbed the assassin's wrist. He twisted. Bones cracked. The assassin made a sound like an animal in pain. The cloaking field flickered and died, revealing a creature with gray skin and 4 eyes. A member of the Shadow Guild, the most dangerous killers in the galaxy. Do-hyun did not care who he was. He only cared about one thing, protecting her. He spun, using the assassin's own weight against him, and threw him to the ground. The marble floor cracked from the impact. The assassin tried to rise, but Do-hyun was faster. He brought his knee down on the creature's chest, pinning him. His hand found the assassin's throat. "Do not move," Do-hyun said. His voice was calm, cold, nothing like the quiet servant everyone knew. Silence fell over the grand court. Every golden eye turned to look at him. The nobles, the guards, the emperor himself. They all stared at the human servant who had just done the impossible. Princess Yuna stood behind him, her hand pressed to her mouth. Her eyes were wide with shock. "Do-hyun," she whispered. General Taizun pushed through the crowd. He was the commander of the Imperial Guard. He was tall even for a villain, and his face was hard as stone. His hand rested on his weapon. "What is this?" he demanded. "What just happened?" He looked at the assassin on the ground. He looked at the broken tray. He looked at the blood running down Do-hyun's arm. Then he looked at Do-hyun's face. "You move faster than any human should be able to move," General Taizun said slowly. "You caught a Shadow Guild assassin with your bare hands. You stopped an energy blade with a serving tray." He stepped closer. His golden eyes burned with suspicion. "What are you?" Do-hyun looked up at him. For the first time in 3 years, he did not lower his eyes. He met the general's gaze directly. "I am human," he said simply. "No human can do what you just did." Do-hyun smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of someone who had been hiding for too long. "You do not know what humans can do," he said. "None of you do." Behind him, Princess Yuna stared at the servant she thought she knew. The servant who had just saved her life. The servant who was clearly something much more than he appeared. The court watched in silence. The emperor leaned forward on his throne. The nobles whispered to each other, and Do-hyun stood in the middle of it all, bleeding, calm, and finally seen. The hiding was over. The guards took the assassin away. Medical servants rushed forward to treat Do-hyun's wound. He let them work, but his eyes never left the emperor's face. Emperor Jeho was ancient, even by Velen standards. He had ruled for 400 years. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had crushed rebellions and won wars. Nothing surprised him anymore. Until now. "Bring him forward," the emperor commanded. The medical servants stepped back. 2 guards approached Do-hyun, ready to grab his arms. He walked forward on his own, making them unnecessary. Blood still dripped from his shoulder, but he moved without pain. His steps were steady and sure. He stopped at the base of the throne and bowed. Not deeply, not the bow of a servant, the bow of an equal showing respect. The nobles gasped at this small act of defiance. "You move faster than our best warriors," the emperor said. His voice was deep and cold. "You stopped an assassin that my guards did not even see. You took a wound that should have killed you, and you stand before me as if it is nothing." Dawn said nothing. He waited. "Explain yourself, human. What are you?" For a long moment, Do-Hyun was silent. He could feel every eye in the room watching him. He could feel Princess Yuna's gaze on his back. He could feel the weight of 3 years of hiding pressing down on him. Then he lifted his head and spoke. "My people call it the awakening," he said. His voice was clear and calm. "It happens to some humans, very few, maybe 1 in 10 million. The awakening," the emperor repeated. "Explain." "When a human faces death, true death, something changes inside them. Something wakes up. It is very old, as old as our species. It comes from a time when we had to fight to survive every single day." Lady Myre pushed forward from the crowd. She was a powerful noble, beautiful and cruel. She had always hated humans. To her, they were pests, insects. "This is nonsense," she said. Her voice was sharp, like breaking glass. "Humans have no special powers. They are the weakest species in the empire. Everyone knows this." Do-Hyun turned to look at her. His eyes were calm, but there was something in them that made her step back. "You think we are weak," he said, "but you do not know where we come from. You come from a small planet on the edge of the galaxy. It is nothing special. You are wrong." Do-Hyun looked around the room, meeting as many eyes as he could. "Earth is what our scientists call a death world." The room went quiet. "Our gravity is higher than most planets where life develops. Our atmosphere is toxic to many species. We have bacteria and viruses that could kill a Velen in days. Our sun sends radiation that would burn the skin off most living things." He paused to let this sink in. "We have predators with teeth and claws. We have storms that can destroy cities. We have earthquakes and floods and fires. We have diseases that have killed millions of us throughout our history." Lady Myre opened her mouth to speak, but Do-Hyun continued. "And yet we survived. We did not just survive. We conquered our world. We built civilizations. We went to the stars." He held up his wounded arm. The bleeding had already stopped. The skin was beginning to close. "We did not survive by being weak. We survived by being the most adaptable species our planet ever produced." General Tayson stepped forward. His face was hard to read, but there was something in his eyes that might have been interest. "This awakening," he said, "what does it give you?" Do-Hyun looked at him. "Speed, strength. Our bodies become what they were always meant to be. Our healing becomes fast. Our senses become sharp. We can see patterns that others cannot see. We can react before we even know we are reacting." "And the assassin?" "You knew he was there before anyone else. I saw the shimmer of his cloaking field. I felt that something was wrong. I cannot explain it better than that. It is like seeing the future, but only a few seconds ahead." The emperor leaned forward. "And this wound? It should have cut your arm off. Instead, you are healing as we speak." Do-Hyun nodded. "Awakened humans heal quickly. Not instantly, but fast enough. This wound will be gone in a few days, maybe less." The court erupted in whispers. This was impossible. This was wrong. Humans were weak. Everyone knew this. Everyone had always known this. But the evidence stood before them, covered in blood that was already drying. "There is one more thing," Do-Hyun said quietly. The emperor raised his hand. The whispers stopped. "What is that?" Do-Hyun looked at the crowd, at the nobles who had ignored him for 3 years. at the guards who had treated him like dirt, at Lady Myray, who looked at him like he was something stuck to her shoe. "When the awakening happens," he said, "we stop being afraid." The words hung in the air like smoke. I spent 3 years being invisible. I let myself be treated like nothing. I did this because it was easier, because it was safer. He shook his head slowly. "But I was never afraid of you. I was afraid of what would happen if you knew what I really was." He turned back to the Emperor. "Now you know. All of you know. And I am not afraid anymore." Princess Yuna stepped forward from the crowd. Her face was pale, but her voice was steady. "He saved my life," she said. "Whatever he is, he used his power to protect me, not to harm anyone." The Emperor looked at his daughter. Then he looked back at Dayan. "The question remains," he said slowly. "What do we do with you now?" Do-hyun stood tall. His wound had almost closed. His eyes were clear and bright. "That is your choice, Your Majesty. But I suggest you choose wisely." It was not a threat, but it was also not the words of a servant. It was the words of someone who knew his own worth. The court watched in stunned silence. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. The game had changed, and everyone in the room could feel it. The Emperor did not answer right away. He sat back on his throne and studied Do-hyun like a man studying a new kind of animal. Something dangerous, something useful, something that needed to be understood before it could be controlled. The silence stretched on. The nobles shifted and whispered. The guards kept their hands on their weapons. Finally, Lady Myray spoke again. Her voice was loud and angry. "This changes nothing," she said. "He is still human. One strange human does not make their species worthy of respect. I say we execute him. Make an example. Show the other humans that they cannot hide secrets from the Empire." Several nobles nodded in agreement. Do-hyun could see fear in their eyes. Fear of what he represented. Fear of what it might mean if there were more like him. "Execute him?" Another voice spoke up. It was Lord Hyunsik, a military commander who had won many battles for the Empire. He was old and scarred, and he looked at Do-hyun with something like respect. He stopped a Shadow Guild assassin with his bare hands. "Do you know how many of my soldiers have died trying to do the same thing?" "Then study him," Lady Myray snapped. "Cut him open. Find out how this awakening works. Use it." Princess Yuna stepped forward, her face pale with anger. "He is not an animal to be dissected. He saved my life." "He is a human," Lady Myray said, as if that explained everything. "He is a person." The court erupted into arguments. Nobles shouted at each other. Some demanded death. Some demanded study. Some demanded that Do-hyun be sent to the military. Some demanded that he be locked away forever. Through it all, Do-hyun stood silent. He watched. He waited. General Tayson raised his hand for silence. The argument slowly died down. "I have a question," the general said. He looked at Do-hyun with hard eyes. "You said 1 in 10 million humans experiences this awakening. Earth has 8 billion people. That means there are approximately 800 awakened humans in existence." Do-hyun nodded. "Approximately. Maybe more. We do not exactly advertise ourselves. Where are these others? Are they hiding like you were?" "Some of them. Others work normal jobs. Others." Do-hyun paused. "Others have already proven their worth in ways you do not know about. What does that mean?" Do-hyun smiled slightly. "There have been accidents, disasters, attacks, times when things should have gone very wrong, but somehow did not. Sometimes a human was nearby when these things happened. Sometimes that human moved a little too fast, or was a little too strong, or survived something they should not have survived." The room went quiet again. "You have been protecting us," Princess Yuna said softly. "All this time." without anyone knowing. We protect everyone, Dalian said. Human and Velen and everyone else. That is what we do. We protect. Lady Myre laughed. It was an ugly sound. You expect us to believe that? Humans are selfish, greedy, violent. Your history proves it. Our history proves that we can be all of those things, Doyun agreed. But it also proves that we can be brave, kind, loyal. We can love and sacrifice and fight for what is right. We are not perfect, but we are not what you think we are. He turned to face the entire court. His voice grew stronger. You see us as weak because we live short lives, but those short lives burn bright. We do not have centuries to make our choices. We have decades, sometimes less. So we learn to act, to fight, to love deeply and without fear. He pointed to his shoulder, where the wound had almost completely healed. You see us as fragile because our bodies are soft. But our bodies were made to survive on a world that tried to kill us every day. We break, but we heal. We fall, but we get up. We die, but we keep fighting until the very last breath. His eyes found Lady Myre. You'd call us weak. But weakness is not about the body. It is about the spirit. And the human spirit has never been weak. The noble woman's face twisted with hatred, but she said nothing. There was nothing she could say. Emperor Yeho finally spoke. His voice was soft, but it carried through the entire room. You make a compelling argument, human. But arguments are just words. Words can lie. Yes, Your Majesty. They can. So give me something more than words. Give me a reason to believe that humans can be trusted. That awakened humans will not become a threat to my empire. Nahang was quiet for a moment. Then he reached up and touched his shoulder. The wound was gone. Only a faint scar remained. You ask for proof of trust, he said. I can give you this. For 3 years, I lived in your palace. I served your family. I was close to your daughter almost every day. If I wanted to harm the empire, I could have done it 1,000 times. I could have killed nobles, stolen secrets, caused chaos. He spread his hands. But I did none of these things. I cleaned floors. I carried trays. I polished swords. I did my job, and I did it well. Not because I was forced to. Not because I was afraid. But because I chose to. He looked at Princess Yuna. And when the moment came, when someone tried to hurt someone I cared about, I did not think about myself. I did not think about revealing my secret. I only thought about protecting her. The princess met his eyes. Something passed between them. Understanding, gratitude, perhaps something more. That is what humans do, Doyun said, turning back to the emperor. That is what awakened humans do. We protect. We serve. We give everything we have for the people we care about. He bowed his head. I am not asking you to trust all humans. I am asking you to give us a chance to earn that trust. The same chance any species deserves. The court was silent. The emperor's face revealed nothing. Then, slowly, he began to nod. You speak well, Candolian. Perhaps too well for a simple servant. I was never a simple servant, Your Majesty. I was just pretending to be one. For the first time, the emperor smiled. It was a small smile, cold and calculating, but it was real. I believe you were, he said. The question now is what you will become. The emperor rose from his throne. The movement was slow and careful, like a great tree bending in the wind. Everyone in the room held their breath. I have made my decision, he said. Lady Myra stepped forward eagerly. Your Majesty, surely you cannot let this creature live. He is dangerous. He has been lying to us for years. Silence. The word was soft, but it cut through the air like a blade. Lady Myri closed her mouth and stepped back, her face red with anger. The Emperor walked down the steps of his throne. Each step was heavy with the weight of 400 years. He stopped in front of Do-Yun, looking down at the human who had shaken his entire court. "You will not be executed," the Emperor said. A wave of whispers swept through the room. Some nobles looked relieved. Others looked furious. Lady Myri's hands clenched into fists. "You will not be studied like an animal," the Emperor continued. "You have shown courage and loyalty. These things deserve reward, not punishment." Don bowed his head. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I am not finished." The Emperor's voice hardened. "You have also shown that you are capable of great deception. For 3 years, you hid your true nature. You lived among us as a servant while being something far more. This cannot go unpunished." The room grew tense again. Princess Yuna stepped forward, but her father raised a hand to stop her. "Your punishment will be this," the Emperor said. "You will no longer be allowed to hide. You will no longer be a servant. Instead, you will serve the Empire openly, where everyone can see what you truly are." Do-Hyun looked up, confused. "I do not understand. I am giving you a choice." The Emperor's golden eyes bore into him. "You may return to Earth. You will be free to live your life however you wish. We will tell no one what you are. You can disappear and be forgotten." He paused. "Or you may stay. You may become the sworn protector of my daughter, Princess Yuna. You will guard her with your life. You will stand at her side in front of the entire empire. Everyone will know what you are. Everyone will see that a human serves in a position of honor." The court erupted into chaos. Nobles shouted in protest. Guards exchanged shocked looks. Lady Myri looked like she might faint from rage, but Princess Yuna smiled. Do-Hyun stood very still. He thought about Earth, about his family, about the quiet life he could have if he went back. He thought about hiding again, being invisible again, being safe. Then he thought about Princess Yuna, about the way she had spoken to him when no one else would, about the way she had defended him when everyone else wanted him dead, about the way she looked at him like he was a person, not a tool. "I will stay," he said. The Emperor nodded, as if he had expected this answer. "Then kneel, Kang Do-Hyun." Do-Hyun knelt on the cold marble floor. The room fell silent. The Emperor drew a ceremonial blade from his belt. It was ancient, made of metal that glowed like starlight. He touched it to Do-Hyun's shoulder. "By my authority as Emperor of the Velen, I name you sworn shield of Princess Yuna. You will protect her with your life. You will serve her with honor. You will stand as proof that humans are more than we believed them to be." He lifted the blade. "Rise, sworn shield." Do-Hyun rose. He turned to face the court. Thousands of golden eyes stared back at him. Some were angry. Some were afraid. Some were curious. And some, just a few, looked at him with something that might have been respect. Princess Yuna walked forward and stood beside him. She was shorter than him, which was rare when comparing humans and Velen. But she stood tall and proud. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for saving me, for staying." "Thank you for seeing me," Do-Hyun replied, when no one else did. In the weeks that followed, things began to change. Slowly, carefully, but they changed. The other humans in the palace started walking with their heads a little higher. They started meeting the eyes of the Velen nobles. They started speaking up when they had something to say. The nobles did not know how to react. For centuries, they had treated humans as lesser beings. Now one of those lesser beings stood at the side of a princess, wearing the armor of a royal protector. If one human could hide such power, how many others were hiding too? If one human could stop a Shadow Guild assassin, what else were humans capable of? The question spread through the empire like fire. Scientists began to study human biology with new interest. Military commanders began to recruit human soldiers for special units. Diplomats began to treat Earth with more respect. Not everyone was happy. Lady Myray and her allies worked against the changes. They spread rumors. They caused problems. They tried to prove that humans were still worthless, but the truth was already out. And truth is hard to hide once it has been seen. One night, Princess Yuna found Do-Yoon on the observation deck. He was standing alone, watching the stars turn slowly in the endless dark. "Do you miss Earth?" she asked. "Sometimes," he admitted, "but not as much as I thought I would. Do you regret staying?" He turned to look at her. In the starlight, her golden eyes looked almost human. "No," he said. "I do not regret it. Even though everyone knows what you are now. Even though you cannot hide anymore." Do-Hyun smiled. It was a real smile, warm and honest. "I was tired of hiding," he said. "It is better to be seen, even if some do not like what they see." Princess Yuna nodded slowly. "What happens now? To you? To your people? I do not know." He looked back at the stars. "But I know this. Humans have been watching and waiting for 50 years. We have learned your languages, your customs, your technology. We have adapted, the way we always adapt. And now we are starting to wake up." That sounds almost like a threat. It is not a threat. He shook his head. "It is a promise. Treat us well, and we will be the most loyal allies you have ever had. We will fight beside you, die for you, give everything we have for you." He paused. "But if you try to hurt us, if you try to use us, if you treat us like animals instead of people." His voice grew quiet, but something in it made Princess Yuna shiver. "Then you will learn why our ancestors survived on a death world." The stars burned cold and bright above them. Somewhere far away, on a small blue planet, 8 billion humans lived their lives. Most of them would never know about this moment. Most of them would never know that one of their own had changed the galaxy. But the change had begun, and nothing would ever be the same. "I will make sure my people choose wisely," Princess Yuna said softly. Do-Hyun looked at her. The princess who had seen him when no one else had. The princess who had defended him when no one else would. The princess he had promised to protect with his life. "I know you will," he said. "That is why I stayed." They stood together in the starlight, human and Velen, servant and princess, watching the future unfold before them. And somewhere deep inside Kang Do-Hyun, the power that had awakened burned steady and strong, waiting for whatever came next. The end.